Welcome, Seeker.
They called it the secret of secrets, a law so subtle and omnipresent that it weaves itself into every act of creation. From the birth of a universe to the flicker of a single thought, the ancients knew it not as a rule of biology or romance, but as the pulse of existence itself. Every spark of light that emerges from darkness, every idea that manifests into form, every movement of the cosmos follows this sacred polarity, the principle of gender. But before you imagine masculine and feminine as mere human traits, pause. What the Hermetic masters meant by gender transcended flesh, identity, or social form. It was the eternal dance of active and receptive forces, the twin currents of energy that shape all reality. This principle, the seventh of the Hermetic laws, is rarely spoken of with the depth it deserves. It has been reduced, misunderstood, even avoided, as if its true power was too dangerous to reveal. Yet within it lies the key to manifestation, to creativity, and to understanding the dual nature of your own consciousness. When Hermes Trismegistus wrote, "Gender is in everything," everything has its masculine and feminine principles. He was not speaking of man and woman. He was describing the architecture of being, the way the one becomes two, and through that polarity becomes all. In this exploration, we will journey into the hidden essence of the principle of gender. We'll trace its origins from the mystery temples of Kemet and Greece to its echoes in alchemy, Taoism, and modern metaphysics. We'll uncover how this law operates in the mind, in the universe, and in the soul itself. And finally, we will learn how to balance these forces within us, not to suppress one or glorify the other, but to unite them, as the ancients did when they sought to awaken the androgynous light within, the divine equilibrium that transcends polarity. Because to understand gender in the Hermetic sense is to understand how creation happens through you. And in that realization, you will no longer be at the mercy of your impulses, emotions, or desires, but the conscious author of your destiny. This is not about gender as society defines it. This is about the blueprint of life itself, a secret rhythm that moves between stillness and motion, thought and form, spirit and matter. Let's begin. To understand the Hermetic principle of gender, we must first travel back to where the whispers of this truth first began, to the cradle of civilization, where philosophy, magic, and divinity were one and the same. In the shadowed halls of ancient Kemet, the land we now call Egypt, the mystery schools taught that all creation was born from the marriage of complementary forces. They called it the two lands, a symbolic reflection of the two currents that pulse through every aspect of existence, masculine and feminine, order and chaos, spirit and matter. The god Osiris embodied the active, generative principle, consciousness, will, and direction. Isis, his divine counterpart, represented the receptive, nurturing aspect, wisdom, intuition, and manifestation. Their sacred union was not romantic mythology, but a cosmic allegory. Together, they formed the totality of creation, the mind of God reflected in the fabric of the world. From these ancient mysteries emerged a realization that echoed through every later civilization, that nothing exists in isolation. Every seed must be planted in fertile ground. Every idea must find a vessel to be born. When the Greek philosophers inherited the teachings of Egypt, they transmuted these ideas into the language of metaphysics. Plato spoke of the world soul, where divine forms impregnate the realm of matter, giving rise to everything we perceive. For him, the act of thinking itself was a form of divine generation. The mind, masculine, impressing form upon substance, feminine. In the later Hermetic texts, the Corpus Hermeticum, this principle became foundational. Hermes Trismegistus declared that the father is mind, the mother is matter, and from their union, all things are born. This was not mere poetry, but a map of creation, describing how the invisible gives birth to the visible, how thought crystallizes into form. Across the world, parallel systems revealed the same truth in different tongues. In the East, the Taoists called it yin and yang, two opposing but interdependent energies whose eternal dance sustains the universe. In Hindu philosophy, the same wisdom manifested as Shiva and Shakti, the static consciousness and the dynamic force that together weave the cosmos. Everywhere, the ancients knew the balance of these two principles is the key to harmony, both in the universe and within the human soul. When one dominates, imbalance and suffering arise. When they unite, enlightenment and creation follow. Yet as humanity evolved, the deeper meaning of this law was obscured. Religious institutions began to externalize what was once understood as inner truth. Masculine and feminine were no longer cosmic forces, but social categories, rigid, limited, and divisive. The sacred union that once symbolized creation itself was fragmented into hierarchy and conflict. The esoteric schools, however, never forgot. In alchemy, this principle is preserved in the marriage of sulfur and mercury, the solar king and lunar queen, united to produce the philosopher's stone. To the alchemist, this union was not just chemical, it was spiritual. It symbolized the marriage of the mind and heart, logic and intuition, human and divine. Through this secret tradition, the principle of gender survived the fall of empires and the silence of dogma. It remained hidden in the scrolls of Hermeticism, in the veiled symbols of Kabbalah, and in the breath of those who still sought the great work, the perfection of the soul through balance. So, when we speak today of the Hermetic Law of gender, we are not speaking of men and women, nor of identity or preference. We are speaking of the eternal process by which all things are conceived, gestated, and born, within nature, within thought, within you. Because this law operates in every dimension of being. It is the silent rhythm between inspiration and action, vision and manifestation, potential and form. And as we move deeper, you will see how the ancients not only understood this law, they used it. They learned to harness these two currents of energy within themselves to create balance, power, and spiritual awakening. To grasp this law fully, we must now step beyond the myths and symbols and uncover the mechanics of this divine polarity, the secret anatomy of creation itself. At the heart of all creation lies a pulse, the eternal interplay between two opposite yet inseparable forces. The Hermetic principle of gender teaches that everything in existence contains both a masculine and a feminine nature, not as human traits, but as universal dynamics. This is not about gender in the biological or cultural sense. It is about energy, polarity, and the very mechanism through which reality comes into being. The Kybalion, that cornerstone of Hermetic philosophy, states, "Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes." In this single sentence, the ancient initiates encoded one of the most profound truths about creation itself. The masculine is the projective force. It represents consciousness, will, logic, direction, and action, the spark that initiates movement. It is the seed that seeks to express itself, to define, to penetrate the void with meaning. The feminine, on the other hand, is the receptive force, the matrix of creation. It is intuition, imagination, emotion, and the field of possibility that receives, nurtures, and gives form. It is the fertile ground upon which the seed takes root, the mystery that transforms potential into manifestation. Neither can exist without the other. The masculine, without the feminine, becomes rigid, abstract, an idea with no reality. The feminine, without the masculine, becomes formless, a womb without seed, a dream without direction. Only through their union can something be born. Look closely, and you'll see this duality everywhere. In the atom, where the positive proton and negative electron dance in balance. In the mind, where thought, masculine, meets emotion, feminine, to produce action. In the cycles of day and night, giving and receiving, inhaling and exhaling, the cosmos itself breathes through this polarity. This principle extends beyond the physical. On the mental and spiritual planes, it reveals the secret of creation through consciousness. Every thought you have, every vision, every dream, begins as a masculine impulse. You conceive an idea, an intention, a spark of will, but that idea remains unborn until it is embraced by the feminine aspect of your being, by feeling, imagination, and inner receptivity. When these two meet, the idea gestates. Your mind becomes the womb of creation. What was once abstract becomes emotional, then energetic, and finally material. Every invention, every work of art, every transformation begins with this same sacred process, the eternal marriage of thought and feeling, will and imagination. This is why Hermeticism insists that creation begins within. When the masculine and feminine within you are in harmony, you are in alignment with the creative current of the universe itself. But when they are divided, when logic dominates intuition or emotion overwhelms reason, imbalance arises. You lose coherence. The seed of your intentions never finds fertile ground. In this sense, the Hermetic principle of gender is also a law of manifestation. It teaches that we create reality not by thought alone, but by uniting thought and feeling. It is not enough to think of what you want. You must feel it, nurture it, and allow it to grow through your inner feminine. And it is not enough to dream. You must direct that dream with focus and will through your inner masculine. This sacred interplay is the root of all creative power, the inner alchemy that turns energy into experience. When you learn to balance these forces, your actions become aligned with purpose. Your mind becomes fertile soil for divine ideas, and your reality begins to reflect the harmony of your inner world. The ancients understood this not as metaphor, but as energetic science. They saw the human being as a microcosm of the cosmos, a vessel containing both the solar and lunar forces, eternally seeking equilibrium. Through meditation, ritual, and breath, they learned to harmonize these two currents, awakening the creative fire known as the Great Work. And here lies the secret. The principle of gender is not simply about creation. It is about becoming a conscious creator. It is about awakening the divine potential within you to command the forces that shape reality itself. But before we can do that, before we can master this art of inner balance, we must understand the deeper, hidden meaning behind these two energies, what they represent on the spiritual plane, and how they interact in the process of evolution. That's what we'll explore next, the mystical mechanics of gender beyond polarity, where duality dissolves into unity. If you're finding these hidden truths enlightening, consider subscribing to the channel. This journey through Hermetic wisdom is only beginning. And share your thoughts below. How do you see these two energies playing out in your own life? In the teachings of the ancient mysteries, the principle of gender was never just about cosmic balance. It was the key to spiritual awakening itself. Behind every myth of divine lovers, every story of gods and goddesses, every alchemical marriage, lies a single truth, the union of the masculine and feminine within the human soul. This was called the hieros gamos, the sacred marriage. To the uninitiated, it appeared as mythology. To the adept, it was a code, a roadmap to inner illumination. The Hermetic sages knew that as long as these two forces remained divided within us, we would remain trapped in duality, endlessly seeking outside what can only be completed within. They taught that enlightenment is not the annihilation of duality, but its reconciliation. That true power, true wisdom, is born when the masculine and feminine become one consciousness. This is why so many esoteric traditions speak in symbols. The sun and the moon, the king and the queen, fire and water, spirit and matter. Each is a mirror of the same law, the eternal dance of polarity striving toward wholeness. In alchemy, this process was called the conjunctio, the sacred conjunction. The alchemist was not merely turning lead into gold, but uniting the divided forces within his own being. The masculine, symbolized by sulfur, fiery, assertive, volatile. The feminine, symbolized by Mercury, fluid, receptive, reflective. When perfectly balanced, these elements gave rise to the philosopher's stone, the perfected consciousness. The same mystery is hidden within yogic philosophy. In the subtle body, two main currents flow: Pingala, the solar masculine channel, and Ida, the lunar feminine channel. Their union awakens Kundalini, the serpent power that ascends the spine, the bridge between heaven and earth, spirit and form. When the masculine current of consciousness unites with the feminine current of energy, the result is transcendence. Even in Christian mysticism, this law whispers through the Gospels. The marriage of the Lamb and the bride, the descent of the Holy Spirit, all reflect the same archetype. The soul's return to unity through divine balance. This is why the Christ figure is often depicted as the perfect androgynous being, embodying both aspects harmoniously, beyond division. But the principle of gender extends even deeper into the very process of cosmic evolution. Creation itself unfolds through this sacred polarity. The divine mind projects, masculine, its thought into the infinite womb of potential, feminine. From their union, the universe emerges, galaxies, stars, and life itself, all vibrating with the rhythm of these two forces. This same process occurs within your own consciousness. Every spiritual awakening begins with a spark, a divine impulse seeking expression, but it must descend into the depths of the soul, where it is nurtured, transformed, and born as wisdom. In other words, illumination is conception, the birth of divine awareness through the harmony of your inner masculine and feminine. Yet, in the modern world, this principle has been lost or distorted. We live in a culture that glorifies action, logic, and dominance, the overextension of the masculine current. Intuition, stillness, and receptivity, the feminine qualities, are often dismissed as weakness. This imbalance has led humanity to spiritual sterility, creating endlessly, but without wisdom, consuming endlessly, but without meaning. The ancients warned of this. They taught that when the masculine acts without the feminine, creation becomes destruction. When the feminine receives without the masculine, potential becomes chaos. Only through balance can there be harmony, both in the cosmos and within ourselves. To live according to the principle of gender is to remember this balance in every act of life. To speak not only with thought, but with feeling. To act not only with will, but with wisdom. To receive not only with openness, but with discernment. When we embody both energies consciously, our being becomes a temple of creation, the microcosm of the universe itself. And perhaps this is the final secret hidden by the Hermetic masters, that the union of these two forces does not create something new. It reveals what has always been there. It dissolves the illusion of separation, unveiling the eternal truth, the one expressing itself as two, so that it might return to the one again. This is the sacred rhythm of existence, the inhale and exhale of the divine. Every heartbeat, every thought, every birth and death, all move to the silent pulse of this eternal gendered dance. The true initiate learns not to resist it, but to move with it, to live in harmony with the cosmic marriage that is always unfolding within and around us. And when you do, when your masculine will and feminine wisdom merge, creation ceases to be accidental. It becomes art. It becomes alchemy. It becomes divine. The principle of gender is not a distant cosmic abstraction. It is the living pulse that animates your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, and your very destiny. To understand it intellectually is one thing, but to embody it, To live as a conscious expression of that balance is the true initiation. In Hermetic practice, this embodiment begins with awareness. Most people live from one pole, dominated by either masculine or feminine tendencies, never realizing that both are within them, waiting to be harmonized. To awaken to the principle of gender is to witness your own inner polarity, to see how each moment calls for a different balance of energy. When you act decisively, speak clearly, or manifest a goal, you are channeling the masculine current. When you listen deeply, feel intuitively, or surrender to the unknown, you are invoking the feminine. Neither is superior. They are two hands of the same creator, and you are that creator. 1. The breath of polarity. Begin with something as simple and as sacred as your breath. Inhale with intention. This is the active, masculine movement of consciousness. Exhale with surrender. This is the receptive, feminine release into being. This rhythmic dance between inhale and exhale mirrors the entire structure of the cosmos: expansion and contraction, projection and absorption, creation and dissolution. By breathing consciously, you realign your body and mind to this eternal rhythm. Try this. Each morning, take 7 slow, deliberate breaths. Inhale the solar principle of will. Exhale the lunar principle of trust. Let them meet in the stillness between breaths, the silent union of both forces. 2. The mirror of the mind. Observe your thoughts as they arise throughout the day. Notice when the masculine dominates, when you strive, analyze, and control. Notice when the feminine recedes, when you doubt, defer, or dissolve your boundaries. Neither is wrong, but imbalance clouds perception. To restore harmony, visualize a golden light in the center of your chest, the point where both forces meet. With each breath, imagine the fiery sun descending from above and the cool moon rising from below, merging in that central space. This visualization, practiced daily, cultivates what Hermeticists called the androgynous soul, the perfect equilibrium of inner polarity. 3. The alchemy of action. Every decision you make can become an act of alchemy. Before acting, ask yourself, am I moving from dominance or from harmony? Am I forcing or flowing? When you act from pure masculine force, you may achieve, but at the cost of balance. When you act from pure feminine surrender, you may feel but lose direction. But when you unite the two, when vision, masculine, meets intuition, feminine, your actions become effortless, inspired, and magnetic. Try this simple Hermetic ritual. When faced with a choice, close your eyes and place your right hand, symbol of will, over your solar plexus, and your left hand, symbol of intuition, over your heart. Ask both centers what they know. Listen to the silent dialogue between them. Then, act from the point where they agree. 4. The union within relationships. The principle of gender extends beyond the self. It shapes every human connection. In relationships, conflicts often arise from energetic imbalance. 2 masculine forces clashing for control, or 2 feminine forces circling without grounding. Harmony emerges when both partners honor their natural polarity without falling into rigid roles. True spiritual union occurs not when one dominates the other, but when both mirror the divine dance, alternating between leading and receiving, expressing and listening. In this sacred exchange, each person becomes a vessel for the other's growth. The relationship itself becomes an alchemical crucible, a place where duality dissolves into deeper unity. 5. The creative path. Finally, apply the principle of gender in your creative and spiritual work. Every idea begins as a masculine spark, the divine impulse to create. But that spark must be received by the feminine womb of imagination, nurtured in silence until it becomes form. Rushing the process burns the seed. Neglecting it lets it die unborn. Creation demands both active direction and patient gestation. When you learn to balance doing with being, force with flow, in tension with surrender, you no longer merely create. You become a conscious participant in the universe's own creative process. The Hermetic masters said, "He who understands the principle of gender has grasped the key of all manifestation." Because this principle is not only about opposites, it is about creation itself. Every thought you give form, every dream you bring to life, every transformation you undergo, all arise from this sacred union. To live this truth is to step into the role of the magus, the one who shapes reality not by force, but by harmony. You cease to live reactively and begin to live creatively. When your inner masculine and feminine cease their battle and embrace as one, your entire existence begins to flow with the rhythm of the cosmos, peaceful, powerful, and divine. The universe is a grand symphony of duality, light and shadow, motion and stillness, birth and decay. But beneath the rhythm of opposites lies a single truth. All polarity is a path to unity. The principle of gender reveals that creation itself is born through this sacred union. It is the eternal dance between the two halves of the divine, the active and the receptive, the will and the wisdom, the seed and the soil. Every galaxy that spins in the heavens, every heartbeat that echoes within your chest, is an echo of this cosmic marriage. When Hermes Trismegistus declared, "Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles," he wasn't describing human sexuality. He was unveiling the architecture of existence itself. He was saying, to understand the masculine and feminine is to understand how reality moves. And yet, this wisdom has been buried under centuries of distortion and misunderstanding. Religions turned it into dogma. Society turned it into hierarchy. But the truth remains untouched, quiet, luminous, waiting to be rediscovered by those who look beyond form. To walk the Hermetic path is to bring those forces back into balance, within thought, within feeling, within life itself. It means recognizing when to act and when to allow, when to speak and when to listen, when to create and when to receive. In doing so, you become an instrument of divine equilibrium, a living reflection of the harmony that sustains the universe. And once that harmony awakens within you, even the most chaotic moments of life become expressions of the one mind at play. You begin to see that nothing is random, and that every polarity, even pain and joy, loss and gain, are lovers in disguise, forever returning to union. The true initiate does not reject polarity. He masters it. He stands in the still point where opposites meet, neither enslaved by emotion nor trapped in intellect, but free, radiant, and whole. From this center, decisions become clear, relationships deepen, and creativity flows like a sacred river. This is the secret the ancients guarded in temples of stone in silence, that the greatest power is not domination, but balance, and that every being, when united within, becomes a vessel for divine creation. So, as you breathe, speak, and move through the world, remember this. You are both the sun and the moon, the fire and the water, the dreamer and the dream. Within you lies the same power that spins galaxies and births stars. You were never meant to choose between opposites. You were meant to become their union. And when you do, the universe itself begins to move with you. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to walk further into the mysteries with us. Share your reflections in the comments. How do you experience the balance of masculine and feminine in your own life? And if you wish to keep unveiling the deeper patterns of reality, subscribe to Labyrinth of the Veiled, where ancient wisdom awakens and forgotten truths return to light.